This podcast is part of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts, visit red5network.com.
Hello there. Hello there. Hello there. Hello there. Hello there. Hello there. Another happy landing.
What's up, everybody? You are tuning into the Escape Pod as you normally do about this time on a Wednesday. Things are going to be a little bit different this week. Brady is away, and we are going to talk to some friends from the Patreon group. Just Jen, Lunr Grl, and Dragon Buddy will be joining me to talk about Doctor Who. Yeah, Doctor Who. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and all your favorite podcasting apps like iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, Audible, and Google Play. You can check out the Red 5 Network for all kinds of excellent podcasts like Road One Radio talking about The Force Awakens this week, and Sarlacc Digest that just talked about the new episodes of The Bad Batch. If you're listening to this audio podcast, please consider joining us live on Wednesday nights at YouTube at youtube.com/c/ATSW The Escape Pod. And please join us at patreon.com, search ATSW The Escape Pod in the search creator bar to support our show and get in on the exclusive escape crates. Please also visit our store on tpublic.com, search the ATSW The Escape Pod, and make sure you scroll down to look at all the random goodies like phone cases, pillows, tote bags, and other t-shirts and hoodies and such. As always, about this time, we do the shout outs. We want to give a special shout out to the mothership, which is now known as the Sidebar Cantina. Our friends over at the Use and Abuse podcast with Scott and Kim. Big Swede's Excellent Adventure and Tactical Swede, and all the other Swedeverse shows that you might want to tune in for. We're going to give a quick shout out to those that are in the chat. Believe it or not, Brady Big Lovin is in the chat. Scott Rasmussen, DJ Red 4 is in the chat. And, you know, Dragon Buddy and Lunr Grl and Just Jen are waiting in the wings. So they're kind of in the chat right now too. If I didn't say so already, welcome, Scott. Good to see you, buddy. Our shout outs for Patreon: Todd Lovin, Jen and Jess Bolt, Big Swede, Lunr Grl, Dragon Buddy, Richie the King Armbruster, Ron Old Man Johnson, Eric Dub Williams, Philly Dave Martin, and as always, Nostalgia Inc. sponsoring the Escape Crate. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in my friend Jen. Welcome, Jen.
Hi, how's it going?
You ready to talk a little Who?
I am, absolutely.
Nice.
I've watched so much Who in the last 2 weeks. I am really ready.
Me too. I've been chewing the Who. Lunr Grl, how you doing?
Hey guys, doing pretty good.
You ready to talk 9, 10, 11?
I am so ready to talk about 9, 10, and 11.
Nice. And Dragon Buddy, how you doing, man?
What's going on? Allons-y.
Alonzi. Or Geronimo, depending on how you're feeling. I'm going to drop this out since it doesn't much say who's talking. So we're kind of all going to talk about this because Doctor Who's been kind of influential show for us. I know personally, like, it's got me through some interesting times in my life that, you know, it's kind of like a warm safety blanket.
Absolutely.
this last week, or 2 weeks where we've been talking about doing this show, I've been reconsuming a whole bunch of stuff and remembering why it is that the show kind of gets me in my feels, or more or less.
Really.
Without getting into any spoilers, working clockwise, Jen, you want to tell us a little bit about why this show's special to you?
Oh, goodness. Well, I was introduced to the show way back when Nine first came on the scene in the UK. I had a German friend, internet friend, and she was sending me these episodes in like 15, because it was, early internet. So I'd get like 15-minute sections at a time. And it was just, my father grew up with Who and always talked about it, and he loved it. And so I was like, this is my Doctor Who. Like, this is new and fun. And it was something completely different from what I was seeing. And then it just didn't stop for the next 12 years, until now. I mean, so we're talking about way back then and now. And it's grown up with me, from my, early mid-20s until my ancient adulthood now. So it's basically the big wedding that happens during 11 was the same day I signed my marriage license with my husband. Like,
Oh,
little things like that, just it makes me happy. So.
that's
Nice.
awesome.
Lunr Grl?
Well, I want to say the fourth Doctor. When we were really, 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 really little, they used to put Doctor Who episodes on PBS.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember watching, I want to say it's the fourth Doctor. It's probably the fourth and the fifth Doctor. Caught some episodes here and there. Didn't really watch it religiously. Kind of faded away from it. But then probably about, what would you say, Dragon Buddy? About 9 years ago, all of a sudden, our oldest came home from school saying, "Oh, we have to watch this new show, Doctor Who." And I'm like, "What?" That's
Not new.
and we were started with nothing. Definitely instantaneously hooked, and ever since then, we're a Whovian family.
Nice. Now, just to confirm, the fourth Doctor was Tom Baker, the Scarf Doctor.
Yes.
Is that who you were thinking of?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was really, really little when we started with that.
That's my first recollection of watching Doctor Who. My dad would watch it
Yeah.
occasionally.
I've always been a sci-fi chick. My name's Lunr Grl. I'm way into space, and it's just a very fun show.
Dragon Buddy?
Same thing like Lunr was saying. Was a kid. Used to be when we'd visit Pennsylvania. We'd watch TV, in the off times, and PBS would have it on, and it'd be like a small marathon. So I remember being a kid, real little up in Pennsylvania was always an adventure because my uncle had very little. We slept with electric blankets on the side of the house that didn't have heat, and so I remember watching that, and it was like a comfort blanket. It was it was comforting watching that because it was good family times. And when our oldest came home and said, you got to check out this show, it's really great, didn't know it had rebooted, and instantly like brought back the feelings of that family and that good time, and it really took off running.
I have no idea who it is in the chat that's named Doctor Who, but thank you for joining us. Super excited to have you. Very cool. Very cool. So I'm going to do a quick rundown for the normies that don't know what Doctor Who is about. So bear with me, guys. Doctor Who is a British science fiction television program broadcast on BBC One since 1963. The program depicts the adventures of a Time Lord called the Doctor, an extraterrestrial being who appears to be human. and then my mouse doesn't work. The Doctor explores the universe in a time-traveling spaceship called the TARDIS. The exterior appears as a blue police box, which was a common sight in Britain in 1963 when the series first aired. With various companions, the Doctor combats foes, works to save civilizations, and help people in need. Beginning with William Hartnell, 13 Doctors have headlined the series as the Doctor, and in 2017, Jodie Whittaker became the first woman to play the role. The transition from one actor to another was written into the plot of the show with the concept of regeneration, which we'll talk a lot about, into a new incarnation, which is a plot device in which the Time Lord transforms into a new body when the current one is too badly damaged.
I think you muted yourself.
I have no idea why StreamYard's doing that now. It's been happening for a little while now. Anyway, each actor's portrayal is unique, but all represent stages in the life of the character, and together they form a single lifetime of this with a simple narrative. A time-traveling feature of the plot means that different incarnations of the Doctor occasionally meet, which is always fun. That's kind of the gist of the show. If you're trying to go, was this something I want to watch? So let's get into the rebooted Doctor, the Ninth Doctor. The Ninth Doctor was portrayed by Chris Eccleston during the first series of the show's revival in 2005. The Doctor was given a primary companion, Rose Tyler. So what is the things that you love about or even dislike about Eccleston's version of the Doctor? Dad, you want to go first?
Yeah, no, I loved how I didn't watch a ton of his, leading up to this because I have them all memorized at this point in time. I've had 15 years to rewatch and rewatch and rewatch. But he's what hooked me, and he was silly and goofy, but there was a real big darkness hidden there. And Eccleston did such an amazing job of playing that. I loved the idea because, I was 25 and Rose wasn't much younger than me. So I loved, as a 25-year-old girl, you're like, that would be so cool. Like, a spaceman come find me because I'm bored. And, and so you get to live vicariously through Rose, who was just a normal girl, for all intents and purposes. She wasn't this, she wasn't amazing at this, and she even says it in the first episode. Like, I failed my classes. I kind of suck at this, and I just like to eat fries, but, and so, those things mixed with just, it was something new that I hadn't seen in a long time made Eccleston's, I would say Eccleston's probably my doctor, the my doctor thing, just because he was the first one that I paid attention to. So that's
nice. Me. Lunr Grl?
Eccleston wasn't my doctor, but it's okay. I still loved him. He's very in your face. He says it how it is. He's got a tiny bit of badass in him where he's not afraid of what he thinks and who he has to say it to. Doesn't really care what anybody else thinks. Wears a leather jacket. He's got that badass chip on his shoulder with the leather jacket. And like Jen said, Rose, just a normal person. She's, I adore Rose. She's probably one of my top 3 favorite companions to this day. She's nice.
Are you guys watching what's happening in the
I
chat?
am loving this
What
chat
the
right
hell?
now. Every one of them showed up. They're here to help.
All the doctors are in the chat talking. It is amazing.
I don't know what you did, but it was magic.
I didn't do it.
This is magical.
I didn't do
shit
it.
right
This
here.
is absolutely amazing.
You know what? They're fantastic, and so are we.
I didn't even have to use my screwdriver. Dragon Buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I related more with Tennant, the 10th Doctor. I think he really literally ran with it. Like he was that epitome of the Doctor just hitting the ground running and go, and it was never a pause to anything. But I did like the other aspects. We stopped watching Jodie Whittaker. We're picking that up this week. Mainly time constraints, I think, was really kind of knocked it off as I started working different schedules. But Eccleston was perfect. He was fun and was funny, but he had a depth to his character that showed that he was his age. You know, he'd seen some things, man. And the Daleks have showed up now, so
they're protecting us from the Daleks
the
now.
doctors are fighting the Daleks in the chat. It is amazing.
Oh.
Like, I don't think my husband has 14 different YouTube accounts that he's working with right now, but I can't promise.
Lunr Grl, we can't hear you. What happened?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, good. I don't know. For some reason, I'm on an iPhone, and if I try to talk, somebody else talks, then you can't hear me because it's an iPhone. But what I was trying to say was I can't see the chat because I'm on an iPhone, so you guys have to fill me in.
Every doctor is in the chat right now, plus a Dalek or two. The Cybermen are here now.
Oh no, the Cybermen are here now.
There are 13 Doctors,
Lord.
Cybermen, and Daleks. It's become magic at 7:00.
That is just insane.
Oh my goodness.
Eccleston, for the longest time, was my doctor. And I kind of I enjoyed his quirkiness, the leather jacketed, middle-aged, I don't have to take any of your shit kind of attitude. I enjoyed quite a bit. But I think his relationship with Rose is what I kind of fell in love with the most.
Yeah.
I have a whole different, inappropriate, crushy relationship with Rose anyway, so it kind of helps. But I just enjoy the way he embodies the a new edginess in being the Doctor, while still taking into account the little quirks that the previous versions of the Doctor had.
Yeah.
There were different times where you could see things that 5 did, or 7 did, or 3 did, and you were like, I remember that. There's a feeling that goes with that.
Yeah.
But with time, 10 definitely ended up being my doc. Well,
Doctor.
I can't say doc. I'll get kicked out of the fan club.
You will. We're gonna kick you out. It'll be ours.
So for each one of the doctors, I pulled off the 5 most liked episodes for that doctor. I'm gonna do that about 8 times. I don't know why. I normally yell at people for doing that. The number 5 for Eccleston's doctor was the episode Rose, where we get to meet Rose working in a shop, and then the Nestine consciousness shows up, and the Autons try and kill everybody, and the Doc blows up the building.
Yeah.
I said, I did it again.
Did it again.
My goodness. I don't know why that's happening. I never do that. Maybe it's because Brady's in the chat and I got Doc Brown in my mind.
Brady's going to have to edit all this out.
Yeah, Brady, edit all that out. I don't know that Brady knows how to edit. It is kind of weird not having him in here, by the way.
For sure.
Is there anything particularly about this episode that makes it stand out to you guys, or you just appreciate it for what it is?
Well, it's your introduction to the Ninth Doctor. The first time you see him, he's rescuing Rose, you know, and he just he introduces himself in such a, I am the end all be all of time and space, basically. Like, I feel the earth and the universe moving and you can't, and that's who I am. So see ya, sort of thing. And it doesn't delve into much of how dark he can get, because it's, you know, the introductory episode, and they spend a lot more time with Rose. But I honestly love it just because it's so BBC. It's so you know, moving mannequins and not great cameras and so rudimentary in the most beautiful and adorable way. And, you know, it was my first episode, you know, it was the first diving back into this series. So that's why I love it.
It was that instant campy feeling that Doctor Who had always had.
Mm-hmm.
And it also, like, if you were a Doctor Who fan from the older Doctors, it brought in a character, the Nestine consciousness, it's rooted through Doctor Who, how many times they've come around and tried to, you know, take over the world at any point. So it was a great way to bring the Doctor back.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I very much enjoyed like you say, the campiness of the rubber monster.
Yeah.
It never really tries to be visually shocking, but more intellectually scary. The Doctor Who series embodies a lot of the things that made the Twilight Zone great.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much what you saw, it was what it did to your mind while you saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're going to get into it later when we get into the Weeping Angels. You never walk past a statue again.
Don't blink. Blink.
Exactly. Oh, the Doctors were victorious. They did defeat the Daleks in the chat. and the Cybermen.
My husband was up and walking the last few you know, messages, so it really wasn't him. I'm kind of surprised.
Oh, it's so great. I really appreciate you guys stopping by. It was super fun. Feel free to stay, but
I wish I could have seen that. I'm gonna have to go back.
And check it out.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna have to go back and watch it because they were having an all-out war in the chat, and I only caught so much of it.
It was epic.
It was truly epic. The next episode is Dalek, where we get reintroduced to the Daleks in an underground bunker owned by Henry Van Staten, a rich collector of alien artifacts. An alien time traveler, the Ninth Doctor, and his traveling companion Rose encounter the bunker's only living exhibit, a Dalek, which breaks loose and proceeds to start killing everyone in the bunker.
Oops.
Jen, anything particular about this episode that means anything to you?
This was like, I think the first time you saw the Doctor flip the fuck out. Like, he's seeing something that he thought he decimated, and something that it causes actual fear in him, and just you see exactly how dark that 9 can go. And plus the fact you look at a Dalek and it's like, this is absurd. It's got a plunger. It's it's old school BBC absurd, but they make it scary. It can suddenly hover and go upstairs, and
Right.
it's and then the wrap up to it is also so beautiful, because there's this whole story about humanity, and Rose is bringing humanity into the life of this thing, and so it's a great story overall. And then you of course have the asshole rich American guy that just wants to own everything. So
Watch the world burn.
yeah, exactly.
Before Lunr Grl takes over, you bring up an interesting point. The companion is humanity's window into the show. So whoever the companion always is, we get to be them, essentially. You kind of touched on it earlier even too, but I'd be remiss to not stomp that into the ground. Like, that's a super important part about what makes this show fantastic.
And the Doctor's need to always have a companion, I think, to keep him grounded in what's right and what's wrong, and
Right.
What everything is worth, or what's worth fighting for. Because without them, he's unsure. I mean, the time vortex drives them crazy. So you would need somebody to keep you grounded.
That actually brings up an interesting point that once we kind of cover all 3 Doctors, remind me about like how many years each Doctor actually was the Doctor, like that incarnation, because I was like looking at it and trying to figure it out, and it's fascinating at the end of it. So yeah, remind me about that. Sorry.
Anything else, Lunr Grl, Dragon Buddy, about this episode that stands out to you?
I think this episode we really got to know Rose, not just some British chippy who loves to eat fries and works in a clothing store. We got to really see leadership qualities about her, how she took things into her own hands to do the right thing. We got to see how she cares about life, wanting to help the Dalek. She thought she was doing the right thing by trying to comfort the Dalek, who like Jen said, completely cheesy, toilet plunger and an egg whisk, and get a Dalek who is like one of the scariest creatures in all of Doctor Who. When you start hearing exterminate, exactly like, oh no,
Right.
crap now, but yeah, I really liked Rose coming out in her own character.
Nice. DB?
I would agree. I think this episode really formed what would I think culminate in the War Doctor coming back, Rose's entire character arc, where you see her, the humanity in her and the compassion in her for everything, not just herself and the Doctor, but everything as a whole. And when you go into the into the War Doctor and his whole story arc, I think the reason Rose is there is because she was the one that really brought him back after years of him traveling on his own between Eccleston and the Eighth Doctor, the American-made movie. But I think it really set that tone, and it really made her character much more likable, and showed that she had depth. She isn't just the girl hanging onto the coattails of the Doctor as they run around doing silly things, shenanigans.
Shenanigans is right. The next one that the internet definitely thought was among the best, Father's Day. The Doctor agrees.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the Doctor agrees to take his companion Rose back to the day her father, Pete, died in 1987. When Rose intervenes and pulls her father out of the path of the car, Time is wounded and the dangerous Reapers attack, threatening to erase history. Pete eventually realizes that he's got to get rid of the Reapers, and he throws himself under the car that was originally meant to kill him. This was the first episode of the rebooted series that really kind of set some boundaries, that we can't just do whatever we want. Some things are fixed points, and if you change them, things go bad.
Mm-hmm.
The Doctor is normally very good at understanding what is going to do that and what isn't, what he can play with and what he can't. But the companions have no grasp of what they can mess with and what they can't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This episode also is kind of the first one of Eccleston's run that really has a lot of feels. This one, if you don't get emotional at the idea of being able to save a loved one and then realizing that you can't, and having them actually make that choice, like, then you're just dead inside. So what say you guys?
Well, it's not
agree
just
there.
yeah, it's not just that. Can I go spoilery on this episode? We kind of covered the whole thing.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen these episodes,
Yeah,
it's been a while.
The episode starts with her mother telling the story of, you know, how her father passed away and he got hit by a car and he was all alone. And at the end of it, Rose is there with him. And so the story changes. And that becomes kind of pivotal later on when she's speaking with her mother. But just the fact that she wasn't able to go back and save him, but she was able to go back and be with him so he wasn't alone. And and him making that decision and understanding that he was her father and all this sort of stuff is just, it's such a beautifully human story in such a, you know, very out of this world scenario, but it's still very insular and very sweet. And I agree. This is easily the top 3 of Eccleston's tenure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like you were getting at, it really put the stamp on, you know, there's fixed points in time, and it had been said through the series in the earlier episodes that it's fixed time, but it really showed you that it's for a reason. And, you know, there's certain things you can't change, but even then you can deal with it better. You can make them better even though they're stuck happening.
I was actually just going to say that it really showed that everything in life needs to happen for a reason, the good and the bad. And also, we saw Rose go in and save her father, you know, because she wanted to do the right thing. And she did it, you know, out of love. But then at the end of the episode, that love was echoed right back when her father made it right again. Rose saw, you know, what happens when you meddle with time, you know, why you should change points at time. And, you know, Dad kind of saved her right back, which Rose was so little, she knew that her father loved her because she heard the stories from Mom, you know, from Jackie, yada, yada, yada. But now she actually got to experience her father's love. So that kind of closure.
Oh, absolutely.
Anything else?
I don't think.
I'm sure that all three or all four of us could literally go on and on and on about every single one, but we've got 13 doctors in the chat that probably need to go to bed soon. So
definitely. The next one's one of my favorites, The Empty Child.
Oh,
yes.
The alien time traveler and why does it say that at the beginning of every one? Anyway, the Doctor and Rose arrive in 1941 during the London Blitz, where they find the city has been terrorized by a strange child in a gas mask, repeatedly asking for his mother. I always refer to this as "Are You My Mommy" episode.
yes.
Just absolutely haunting. The droning on of the child. This episode and the Silence in the Library episode.
Yes.
It plays that same note.
Mm-hmm.
The repeating ominous sound or line of speech. The whole thing's super clever. We get to meet Captain Jack in this episode. Yeah, all the guys wanted to be Captain Jack, and all the girls wanted to sleep with Captain Jack.
And some of the guys
wanted to sleep with
yeah, some of the
Captain
guys
Jack,
too. Good point. I digress.
Captain Jack didn't care. He went with whoever he thought was beautiful.
Yes.
I think The Empty Child was like there's a handful of ones that are truly straight creepy.
Yeah.
And this episode of Doctor Who was kind of ahead of its time, almost like a Black Mirror type episode where, these are nanobots that are, there to save people, and, nothing's wrong. There was nothing on there but medical supplies. And it's really, these things that were man-made to help people is what's gone run amok and gone off the rails. So I think that it stays as a creepy episode as to, what we can do to ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. and the atmosphere was dark. It was rain. It was World War I. Was it 1 or was it 2?
It's 2.
World War II, you hear the air raid sirens, everybody's wearing gas masks, everybody's hiding, so the atmosphere is creepy to begin with, and you hear, "Are you my mommy? Mommy, mommy," and it's like,
We had kids that did that.
It was haunting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It definitely had that near verging on horror aspect, but then you also had Captain Jack. That was a whole new. This is your first other time traveling alien that you've met, and you didn't think those could exist.
Mm-hmm.
And a friendly at that. But plus, I personally I am a sucker anytime they hit like London Blitz. Anytime Doctor Who delves into any of the world wars, there is such a pride there. They always make it a point to be like, we beat these bastards, and I love that aspect of it as well. So beyond what you guys spoke of, that's another reason that I love this. It's a two-parter basically.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's definitely the creep factor plus just the respect that they give to that time in history.
Mm-hmm.
As being the surroundings of this is something that I loved.
Right.
That's not just with Nell, but with all the doctors about how there are historical, there's like monsters and sci-fi and space and time travel and aliens. It's still there are still historical accuracy. And I think that's really neat because that kind of, brings out the nerd in me,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They definitely have a lot of respect for certain points, Pompeii, they're not going to care too much about. They do a little bit, but
Yeah.
I've seen them touch on like the Family of Blood, that two-parter
Yeah.
kind of was in between World War I and World War II, and they did such we're skipping ahead, but
Right.
it's that same theme that they still
Mhm.
did they paid such respect to that, and to the young children dealing with this, and
Yeah.
so I love seeing that in this show.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Two of my favorite moments in this episode and the one after it, right? You said it's a two-parter, right?
It is a two-parter. It's the empty child and something else. Oh, the
So-
doctor dances.
Yeah.
Yes, the doctor
Yes.
dances.
Mhm.
So there's the scene where they're all in the little boy's room and the tape runs out
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
and the doctor's aware the tapes run out
Yeah.
and the kid's like, I'm here. Are you
Yeah.
my mommy? That's super creepy when they turn around and see the kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the scene with Rose and the young woman, the mother of the boy,
Mhm.
Yeah.
when she's having a real emotional heart-to-heart moment with her, and she's like, this is not where it ends.
Mm-hmm.
The Germans don't come here. They don't win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's that moment where she finally gets that ray of hope, and being that I've never been in that deep war situation, I gotta imagine you don't feel like there's a way out of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it was just a beautifully written emotional note, which is one of those things that Doctor Who does better than almost anyone else. Like it hits a feels note on quite a few episodes. Like if you're not at least close to crying 3, 4, or 5 times in a series or in a
Oh
season,
my gosh.
you
Yeah.
weren't paying attention.
Yeah.
Right.
Easy.
I was bawling again yesterday. Ugh.
I was
Yeah.
laying in bed with Tisha last night. We were watching Vincent and the Doctor.
Mm.
Oh yeah.
And at the end, I always start crying. And she looks over at me. She's like, "Are you crying?" And I'm like, "Did you watch the episode?"
Did you not see what just
She's
happened?
like, "I guess I didn't pay enough attention." I explained it to her, and she's like, "Yeah, that was sweet." I don't know.
Every time there's a good 2 handfuls of episodes that no matter how many times I watch them, I'm bummed. I know exactly what's going to happen. Doesn't matter.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All the doctors are leaving. Thank you,
Uh,
doctor.
But
I wish I could type. Super cool actor. I can't type.
I gotta go back and read through it too, because that was a lot
It
going on.
was. The next or the last episode for 9 before we move on is Bad Wolf.
no.
And Bad Wolf is a running theme through not just Eccleston, but it carries on into 10 and 11. And in the far future, 100 years from the events of the Long Game, the Ninth Doctor and his traveling companion, Rose Tyler, and Captain Jack Harkness are secretly brought on board a game show broadcasting satellite, Satellite 5, by its controller, so they can fight against the controller's master, the Dalek race. This episode is one of my favorites just because it plays with all of that. Big Brother and The Weakest Link and all of those game show tropes that were super big in the 90s. And then we wrap it all up with Angry Daleks.
Yeah.
I was never a big fan of the first of this 2-part episode because I hate those shows. Like I hate reality TV. Nobody crucify me. And I saw what they were trying to do with it, but they just did it too well. And I was like, this is my nightmare. And
Right.
it was good to set up what was coming for sure. But if I were to pick between the two, it would be, the last episode of the series, of course, where you kind of figure out what Bad Wolf was and, see how much the Doctor is willing to sacrifice on so many levels. So.
Yeah. And that was the first time we got to see the Doctor actually regenerate.
Yeah. Yep.
Which was another crying moment,
Eccleston went way too soon.
And so was I. And it's like, no.
Yep. That is kind of interesting. We end up getting a lot more time with 10 and 11.
Yeah.
But Eccleston was in and out. Like, it was just like, here, I've kicked the door open on this and passed the baton. I don't know what kind of contractual stuff or whatever was going on the backside of that, but he was gone too soon.
Eccleston, it was my understanding that Eccleston didn't want to be known as the Doctor throughout his career, but was willing to do a season.
So he didn't want to get typecasted.
Exactly. And so, and there's a whole bunch of rumors and bad blood and stuff, but he's back now doing audiobooks, so it probably isn't that terrible, I guess. But
he has, although it's like been kind of underlit, he has had a pretty good career.
Yeah.
Like, he was in that Thor movie.
The bad one.
Yeah. It wasn't the best one. I still think it gets a bad rap, though. That Thor movie is just fine. It's just not. It's not exceptional.
It's. But the Doctor.
So between Bad Wolf and whatever the name of the next one is, we see this arc where Rose looks into the heart of the TARDIS and eventually absorbs the heart of the TARDIS. And then she turns into Bad Wolf. She becomes this incredibly powerful being for a little while, as long as her human body can take it. And that's what costs us 9. Anything particularly about these couple of episodes other than the game show aspect stand out to you guys as being special, memorable stuff?
When Captain Jack was doing the whole modeling thing.
Oh, yeah. He was naked in about every other scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were giving him a makeover and, completely butt naked. And he's like, is anybody see? Oh, yeah. Everybody's watching. And
your ratings are going up, ladies.
Oh, bless.
Hockey, but he's so funny, he really brings like everything. We talked about how dramatic Doctor Who is, and how many times we cried over it, but Captain Jack brought a really great sense of humor and some really hearty laughs.
Captain Jack's character, though, the purity of his love for the Doctor is just because this is not the last time you see him. You continue to see him. And then, if you're getting into Torchwood and stuff, like his awe and respect and love for the Doctor is I wouldn't say more than some of his companions, but definitely more than some of his companions. Like, it's just it's an interesting dynamic between the two. So I liked a lot of this. I loved after the Doctor basically tricks Rose, sends her back with a TARDIS, and because he just expects them all to die, Captain Jack's like, okay, well, what do we do now? I believe in you. We may or may not make it out, but I believe in you. So let's go. You did the right thing. And, that's Captain Jack's MO with the Doctor every time. I believe in you. What are we doing now?
Yep, absolutely. You got anything there, DB?
I think you kind of hit on all of it. Other than it was, sad to see him go so quick. while I feel like I connect more with the 10th Doctor, 9 was fantastic, and
Yes.
his tenure was cut short. I heard the same thing. It was his not wanting to be typecast, as well as there was inner workings where they wanted it to be one and done to set the stage for the Doctor to move forward. But yeah, his time was definitely cut short, and
Yeah.
it was
Now,
a good episode.
did we move to a new showrunner when we went to 10? Is that when Moffat came on?
No, Moffat
No.
didn't come on until 11.
11.
11, yeah.
Okay. Who was the showrunner for 10?
Russell T Davies.
Yes.
Alrighty. So speaking of 10, let's get into what I believe is overwhelmingly our favorite Doctor. The 10th Doctor, played by David Tennant in 3 series, as well as in 9 specials. His companions including Rose Tyler, Martha Jones, and Donna Noble. So he may be the Doctor that had the most companions. I could be wrong. Matt had a handful of them, but I think 3 is the most. I mean, okay, that might
It
not be
depends on
right.
whether it's an ensemble or not.
Yeah,
If you're
'cause-
talking like, I get my one girl here, my one girl here, my one girl here, but like
yeah, you gotta
Jodie's
think-
got like 3 or 4, and
Yeah, she's got a crew.
Yeah,
you know.
that's right. That's right. My bad.
you're good.
And I figure Rory and Amy are their one thing. They come with each other.
Right.
Anyway, moving on. Now that another thing is not only is 9 different visually than 10. They both have completely different accents. They're completely different, like tonally. The way that they interact with the world has a different feel.
Totally different personalities.
Yep. But still
Ooze.
a lot of the same quirks. Like,
Yeah.
it's not that David didn't do his research. He knew what buttons to push to tie everything in.
Yes.
David went into acting because he wanted to play Doctor Who.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
Right.
And that showed definitely.
yeah,
Mhm.
His love for the Doctor as a fan definitely
Absolutely.
showed as him really killing it as
yeah. You can see him just
I mean,
having
he
the time
married
of his
Doctor's
life.
daughter.
Right. Exactly.
Right. What is it to you guys that makes David Tennant's version of the Doctor not just special, but among your favorite iterations of the Doctor?
His hair.
His hair is serious.
Oh,
The bananas. I mean, without a doubt.
bananas.
It's an excellent source of potassium.
Hmm.
I liked how he could latch on to a phrase or a word, and it was just,
Mhm.
and his ability to go, what? Anytime something happened, it was, what? Trying to comprehend. Plus, I think for me, it's more of a nostalgia too. Looking back at it now, being able to watch all of 10 was a huge portion of when my kids were growing up in love
Yeah.
with Doctor Who. So there's certain episodes. I mean, we went all out in our house sometimes for fandoms, having fandom parties and whatnot for the kids. So like, there's certain episodes that really kick in where like I remember sitting down, all of us couldn't wait for this episode to come out, and I think that, and it really, the production of the show really kind of took off as it's no longer in test phase. 10, 9 did great. 10 is working out, and they took the limits off of how much money was going to be spent for production.
Right.
So the shows themselves became much better. Still had that campy feeling to them, but
Mhm.
there was definitely more production value to it.
Right.
They spent a lot more money on the rubber monsters. We'll put it that way.
They're still very rubber, but
Yeah.
high quality, high grade rubber.
I didn't bring it up earlier. My adult exposure to Doctor Who comes from when me and my wife were split up. I had a friend that was like, you should watch this, Doctor Who, and I'm like, I seen it when I was a kid. It's a cute little sci-fi show, but
Yeah.
And she's like, no, you really need to fucking watch these. You'll like them. And I'm like, whatever. And then, after her badgering me consistently for a while, I watched 9, 10, and 11 in about 2.5 months.
Right.
Wow.
I would come home from work. I'd binge 3 episodes. I'd sleep. I'd go to work. I'd come home. I'd binge 3 episodes.
Great show to lose days and weeks of your life.
And
just
I did.
Binging because it was great. One of the next.
If I didn't have my kids for the weekend, it'd be like a 7 or 8 episode day.
Oh yeah.
Right.
We've done that because our kids watched it too, so it was easy.
We did it again leading up to this podcast.
Been binging it for 2.5 weeks before John invited. So, perfect.
Thank you, HBO Max.
Beautiful thing.
Right. Yeah. I've been watching it at the gym. I've been watching it all night while I write for the show. I've been, sitting there hanging out with Tisha last night watching it.
I got through my second COVID vaccine watching it.
Oh, you really needed some comfort food that day.
Oh, that was an in-bed all-day experience for me.
Worth it, but it's a kick in the pants.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a taste of what COVID is. I'll take the taste.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I ain't got time for anything worse than that.
No.
Over again.
Not at all.
Mhm.
So the first episode of notoriety for 10 is The Girl in the Fireplace.
Oh, yes.
Set in France in the 18th century. Repair androids from a spaceship from the 51st century create time windows to stalk Madame de Pomodoro. Nope.
Madame de Pompadour.
De Pompadour. Thank you.
I don't think
Throughout her life, she seeks to remove her brain as a replacement part for their spaceship at a point in her life as they believe her to be most compatible with their ship. Go ahead. Somebody was going to say something, weren't they? No?
I'll say something. That's the first time that we got a sense of how timey-wimey things are. He'd be there, I'll be back in a minute. His minute was hours, and then he'd flip to the other side of the fireplace again. And it would be months, and it just, time was never consistent. And we got a real taste of that through this episode.
True.
It was robotic clock guys. I can't remember the name of them, but they were creepy. Dolls always seem to creep me, any kind of doll. So definitely creepy. Definitely British BBC all over again. It was great.
It was also like one of the first times where they directly showed a romantic connection between the Doctor and somebody else, like unabashedly.
Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't just this girl loved the Doctor. Like the Doctor definitely was intrigued by her, and it there's obviously stuff later on, but it wasn't just, oh, she's cool. It was like, I really am interested and want to come back and have her.
Yeah.
I want to pull her out of this very specific time, very popular time in her life, and
Yeah. Ken was very swoon worthy with all of his companions. I think the only two he really was never interested in were Martha and Donna.
Mm-hmm.
Donna was the only one who was never interested in him.
Vehemently uninterested in him.
Yeah. He's just a skinny little stick boy, you know?
Yeah.
Although I will say the guy that she does fall for later on, not real, like, bulky.
Yeah.
It wasn't much to that guy either.
Right.
I personally don't. This isn't one of my favorite episodes. It's entertaining. It's fine. Like you said, it's good time travel-y thing going on, but it's just not among my. I don't get too eclectic about this one.
Yeah. I agree.
I do. It's one of my favorites just because it's such a. Again, it's such a small story within this huge world of theirs.
Right.
Because you see the beginning, middle, and end of this female character and her life, and you keep jumping in and you see how much even those brief moments the Doctor affected her. And it's just such a tragic and but just beautiful. It's absolutely a beautiful, pining, waiting love story. From her perspective.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes me want to go back and watch it. Maybe I need to get it.
You should. It's a good story.
It is. It's a great story that it's that whole overrunning theme of the Doctor affects so many people for one little thing, a Christmas day, save the world from aliens, or showing up in somebody's life just for a minute, to them meant the world or changed their entire life. And that's his character going through this whole story is how he can help everybody and really affect everybody with minimalist effort.
That's a good point, because there's people like that do that to our lives. Where, like, in fact, me and Jen were talking about this the other night. Like, there's somebody in our past that had a profound effect on my life, and vice versa, not so much. Like, I was more a moment in that individual's life. And that happens all the time. There are people that come in and touch our world, knock it off its axis, and then they just float on doing the things that they do.
Yeah.
And we're forever changed.
Yeah.
And with the Doctor, they don't, especially, as you go along and you watch more episodes, and there's certain episodes where you realize it's not always for the better.
No.
It definitely,
I'm so sorry.
Like you said, knocks people off their axis.
Right.
And makes them realize, oh shit, there's this bigger world, and I have no way to contact it. I have no way to delve into it. So it is, the Doctor's touching lives in certain ways is an entire, gradient of good to bad. And it's fun when they bring that up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The next big one is Doomsday. I just watched this one. It's one of my faves too. On one Canada Square skyscraper and Canary Wharf, this episode's plot consists mostly of the Daleks and Cybermen waging a global war, with humanity on the verge of extinction in a cataclysm.
This one.
What's that?
This one.
This one.
This one.
Oh,
Rose Eye.
the feels. Oh man, yeah, I just cried over this one last week too. Like every single time.
Yeah,
Niagara Falls, Lunar Angel.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this one involves like Mickey comes back, the whole Tyler family gets back together, and Rose is put in a position where it's either them or the Doctor, and then her lost father gets to return the favor and save her.
Yes.
Like, you can't not get emotional about this episode.
Yes. Part where Rose is in one parallel universe, crying with her ear up to the wall.
Oh my goodness.
Or her hand up to the wall, and the Doctor is in the other parallel universe with his hand up against Rose's hand on the other side of the wall. Yet they can't cross worlds, or else the whole entire universe will implode.
Yep.
And it was just, because at this point, it was never said, but it's always implied that Rose and the Doctor, were a thing. They were totally
Right. Yep. Even if it wasn't consummated, it was a thing.
yes.
Right.
They loved each other. And, they just ugh.
I also think that this it kind of stamps what has gone on since the first Doctor, that in order to save the world and run around with the Doctor and do these crazy things and help people in all dimensions and time, there's sacrifice made. And that's the sadness of the Doctor, is that he outlives, his companions. He outlasts his companions. And Rose found out that, by doing this, she ended up having to make a sacrifice, and her biggest sacrifice is to leave that life behind. And
Right.
for the better, for the whole good.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Anything else about this episode?
It's just heartbreaking, really.
Yeah.
I
Rose,
could talk 3 hours about this episode, so it's really good. It's one of the I think it's one of the all-time.
Yeah, I would agree. The next one on our list is Silence in the Library.
Yeah.
In this episode, we meet River Song. River Song summons the Doctor to a planet-sized library in the 51st century, where thousands of visitors disappeared without trace 100 years earlier when the library was shut off. The episode establishes that River Song has met the Doctor on many occasions, but this Doctor does not recognize her. There's a moment in this episode where she realizes that he's younger than she's ever met him before, and it kind of breaks her heart.
Mm-hmm. It was the first time that the Doctor met River, but it was the last time that River ever saw the Doctor.
Sort of.
Yeah. In a timey-wimey,
Yeah.
Wally sense.
Yeah.
That's weird. Oh, there it goes.
What's wrong?
Well, I was typing in the chat, but it wouldn't send it. It just kind of hung out there forever. I love this episode just because we get to see kind of River's unrequited love for the Doctor, and knowing that there's a dynamic that's probably the opposite at some point in their history or their future history. The way that she is both happy to see him and devastated that he's not ready to be, to return that the unrequited affection it's palpable throughout the whole episode.
Yeah.
And then towards the end, when he realizes what's his future self is going to do, like, it's just amazing how this one story folds in on itself.
Absolutely. And then the while all of this is going on, you get to see about Moon and what was her name? The girl who
The little girl?
Yeah. I can't remember her name. But her and then
Cal,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And then everybody that she saves gets sucked into her world, and she creates stories for them, with Dr. Moon, and how Donna gets sucked in. And I really, 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 really loved when Donna was introduced to her husband, and they built this life, and they had 2 children, who she absolutely loved. They got married, they have a house, and when all of it was over, it was just a dream. But then it wasn't.
Right.
Yeah. That's why I love it.
Yeah, this was another 2-parter, and I spent most of my time since you told us we were doing this going back and rewatching a lot of the River storyline.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't missed it. I'd seen it all, but I'd only seen it once. The streaming services came out. I had a lot more options, so I wasn't rewatching these things over and over and over again as much as I had for the first 6 seasons or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so today I watched these 2, The Silence in the Library and The Forest of the Dead, I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And it just broke me after watching the entirety of all the other River stories, because her story is so intricate and so incredible. And Stephen Moffat wrote these 2 episodes having this in his brain somehow, that this is all going to happen later. And it just respecting the narrative of it, because there's so many little things that are in there that he calls back later. And, so it's honestly the understandable skepticism of 10, you say you know me, but, and him, and what it takes for him to believe her, and how that just devastates him in a way.
Yeah.
Right.
And then her realizing that the entire time that they've known each other, he knew when she was going to die, is just this beautiful, beautiful moment. So yeah, I love that. I love this episode.
Then again, she didn't really die.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the doctor doesn't like to say goodbye.
No.
I think when this episode first came out and the first time watching it, it was another one of those episodes where, along with some of the best ones with Blink, Don't Blink and whatnot, where, the Vostra Narada, they, in the, the darkest corners of any house and any place that has a shadow. And, how many times we'd goof with our kids later on, you've got 2 light sources pointing at you, you've got 2 shadows, so it was,
Right.
but then watching, through Tennant, all of Tennant and Smith, and then Capaldi, and watching River's storyline evolve and where it goes, and then watching this one again, knowing that this is the first time he's meeting her and the last time she's meeting him, was it really made it a really good story, that almost like the foresight into the character and where this character was going was played off very well. In this episode, having years in the making to come to culminate to how she would act this way. It was a great episode to watch, to rewatch, especially.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's excellent science fiction.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, like we've talked about. This is excellent science fiction writing. Even if sometimes it looks silly, or some of the episodes aren't amazing, but there's, out of a season of 11 or 12 episodes, there's 5 or 6 of them that are just solid science fiction.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And Stephen Moffat was brilliant at that. He was the writer that you absolutely love to hate, because you never knew where the story was going,
Right.
And everything that he wrote for, even going to Sherlock and he's a great writer. Absolutely.
Yeah, really is.
He never was afraid to break things that you loved.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, for sure.
Which is why I also hated him. So.
Right. But it almost brought him great joy to take something that you loved, tie it up in a sweet little bow, and then choke you with it.
Yeah. Yes.
Or at the very least, poop on it a little bit.
Just a little bit.
A little bit of
this is
on it.
Total detraction. But before Sherlock and Doctor Who, Moffat did a really short, one-off series called Jekyll for BBC.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if you guys haven't seen it, I fully
Oh, it's
recommend
great.
it because that's
Great.
also amazing.
I haven't
Yeah.
seen it.
Did I watch it, Chris?
No.
It's
I
a
watched it
modern
on
day
my own.
Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
great.
okay.
Phenomenal.
Good writing. Great writing.
Great rating, great acting, everything.
The last one we're gonna get into is honestly, I think it's my favorite episode of Doctor Who. It's the one that I tell people, hey, if you're thinking about watching Doctor Who, watch this one. And see if you like it. It's Blink.
Ah, yes.
Great episode.
Absolutely.
The Doctor is trapped in 1969 and tries to communicate with a young woman in 2007, Sally Sparrow, to prevent the statue-like weeping angels from taking control of the TARDIS. Sparrow and her best friend's brother, Larry Nightingale, must unravel a set of cryptic clues sent through time by the Maroon Doctor left in DVD Easter eggs. That whole it's another one of those things like we talked about in the last couple of episodes where the story folds in on itself. You're fed a little thing, a little through line, and you realize that it's actually a thing that happened way before the story started.
Yeah.
This one's absolutely. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Luna. Go ahead.
It's okay. That's when we first heard the phrase "wibbly wobbly, timey wimey,"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and knew exactly what it meant.
Right. At this point, you're like 20 episodes into the new reboot of Doctor Who. Actually, you know what? I think this is in Tennant's second season. So
Yeah,
it
because
might,
Martha was the companion.
yeah, it might be more like 25 episodes in. At this point, you really have a feel for what timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly actually feels like.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I loved this one, and they tried this a couple other times to lesser effect, but you had minimal Doctor in this episode. But Sally Sparrow was such an amazing character, and the Weeping Angels were so terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
The concept of them were so terrifying that you didn't care. You didn't care there was no Doctor. This was just a fantastic and creepy story.
Yeah.
And you just loved, Sally Sparrow enough because she was clever, and you didn't know why she didn't get to travel with the Doctor, because she should have been a companion more than Martha. But yeah, no, this is absolutely one of the best episodes of the entire series.
That sounds like a subtle dig on Martha.
It's not a dig.
Yeah.
I'll take
Fuck Martha.
I've been on record as not being. I've not been a super big fan of Martha as a companion.
I liked Martha. She was nice. She was a good enough person. But I love the Doctor and he doesn't love me. What can I do to make him notice me? It's like, oh, knock it off,
Exactly. And as much as, I love this show, but my husband's first introduction to the show was the end of Martha's season, and I love John Sim as the Master, and I loved, this 3-part episode as a whole. Like, this is kind of cool, but all of a sudden you have a Dobby Bird Doctor in a cage, and you have Martha going, just clap if you believe in him, sort of like Tinkerbell shit, and it just it didn't do the entire thing justice, really. So
we need to watch another episode, and then you'll really love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
It might just be a problem of the writing for Martha.
yeah,
They might just not have done anything good with her.
Yeah, I think
they
it was-
actually
Oh,
go ahead. I was going to say, I will argue that another 2-parter in Martha's series, The Family of Blood, and I brought it up earlier because it's that one between World War I and World War II, where the Doctor has forgotten he's Doctor.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And Martha's here she's the only one who knows who he is, and he's sitting there being a silly little, teacher at a boys' school and falling in love with this other woman, and she's dealing with the racial, issues and not having any kind of respect put towards her just because of her station, and it's such a good story, and it's I don't think it gets enough credit, especially for how dark the Doctor goes afterwards, at the end of that. So that was her one really, really good story. I
kind of forgot about that. That was a good story.
But she definitely handled the being the companion of the Doctor. I thought was the all-time high of Martha being on the show.
Yeah, I don't think it was the actress.
No, I think
she was lovely.
Like she was entitled to the Doctor.
Right.
I think that's her storyline. Kept revolving around. Well, he's supposed to love me, and I'm supposed to love him, and that's
right. I'm the companion. I get to be with him.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and that's not how this works at all.
But I do say that in the very end, Tennant's last episode, right before he regenerates, when he goes and he says all of his goodbyes to every single character, and they showed Martha with Mickey. Like, I loved that. I cheered. I screamed. It's like, that was perfect. Why couldn't
that was the best matchmaking ever happened on Doctor?
Yeah, because didn't she go and work with Unit or something? Like, she was...
Yeah.
It was either Unit or Torchwood she was working for.
No, she gets a job with Unit, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I liked... She left the Doctor herself because she realized how it was not good for her.
Right.
This, and that was one thing that I really respected about the writing of that character, because she finally was like, look, I love what I do. I love what we're doing, but it's not working for me, and I'm taking my independence. But she doesn't let go of the fact that all this exists. She joins Unit. She, continues battling aliens and is still an integral part of the fight, as it were.
Yeah. She seems to become quite the badass, as I remember.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And she reserves the right to call the Doctor whenever they need to be saved. And
exactly.
And cool. But yeah, they just made her into this like whiny, lovesick teenager who's going to get her doctorate. And it's like, come on.
Yeah.
She broke out at the end as they were getting rid of her, where she really had more depth. Where when they moved away from that whole infatuation that she had with the Doctor, it made her character shine, and it made her respect the character a little bit more. And probably her ending up with Mickey in the end was a great matching when it comes to any kind of a sitcom that you would watch, only because these are the two that I'm the third wheel. I feel like the third wheel all the time, and that's how Martha acted and how Ricky acted, and it was one of those, bringing those together is what was great.
The two with the most unrequited love ended up
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved it. It.
Well, that being said, like we said, we all love the 10th Doctor. Let's put on the old fez, and we'll see what's going on with the 11th Doctor. Nice.
He was fun.
He was fun, and he did have one of the best screwdrivers.
He had the best screwdriver for sure.
Envy.
Yeah.
Matt Smith played the Doctor in 3 seasons with 5 specials. His main companions were a feisty Scot named Amy Pond, her husband, Rory Williams, and a mysterious Clara Oswald. Go ahead.
No, don't let her.
Don't let her.
No,
I don't want to get mad
Clara
just
hate
yet.
in here. You're triggering me.
He frequently appeared along River Song, a fellow time traveler with whom he shared a romantic storyline, and he was the last Doctor to appear alongside the long-serving companion Sarah Jane Smith, just before the actress passed away. And you can see some special episodes. What was it? the Sarah Jane Smith Chronicles?
The
stories?
Sarah Jane. It wasn't Chronicles.
It's night.
Adventures.
Adventure.
Sarah Jane Adventures.
Yes.
Yes, those
And
are also
there-
on HBO Max.
And when Sarah Jane came back, she had the little dog K9,
Mm-hmm.
who I have like the fondest memories of when I was watching Scarf Doctor when I was little. And when I've gone back and watched that stuff, it's kind of silly. Like K9 is a slightly better mouse droid. They didn't give him much to do. It was just the idea that maybe a 4 or 5-year-old kid thought was amazing.
Yeah.
I think he does a
Robotic
lot in
dog.
the Sarah Jane Adventures.
Yeah, well, I think that they lovingly gave him a bunch to do because was such a fan favorite. But when you go back and you watch those episodes, those original episodes, he just kind of follows him around. Occasionally he says something, but he just follows them around as they run down hallways.
Mm.
So the first episode of note you know what we didn't do? We didn't talk about Matt in general. So let's do that first.
Okay.
What are the things about Matt Smith's Doctor that you love or dislike?
When they first announced him, I hated everything about him. He was this 12-year-old kid with no eyebrows and the emo hair. And I was like, there's zero way that he's going to do this justice.
It's not gonna work.
No, absolutely not. And the first episode, I was like, oh, shit. I was totally wrong. I was so totally wrong. He manages to, whereas with Tennant, a lot of Tennant's charm was the fact that he was so childlike in a lot of ways. Just very youthful and surprised by things. And, Matt Smith somehow managed to be a 1,200-year-old person, He's
Totally.
he
He's
had
an
that
old
kind of
soul.
surliness and grumpiness and just, yeah, exactly, an old soul. He had this old manness about him and played it so well,
Mhm.
while still kind of
Looking incredibly young.
looking incredibly young, and still kind of the physicality of a little bit of Tennant was still there, and then also his own. He's spry and he's twisting and twirling around and dancing around but he's still just this grumpy old man, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So yeah, that's how I feel about Matt.
My 40-year-old body would love to regenerate to a 20-some-year-old
Oh,
body.
Oh,
Right.
shit.
That would be amazing.
yeah. 100%. 100%. I love
Go ahead, Kel.
his playfulness. He was just so fun. The very first episode, and I need to say, like, I was all set to hate on him because I loved Tennant and my heart was broken and my doctor's gone, and now some, like Jen said, some goofy emo, who's wearing pants that are too short and a pair of suspenders and like old boots.
Dicky
But
Toad.
I loved him. I absolutely loved him. Trying to figure out what kind of food he needed to finish his regeneration.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yes, and he'd like eat something and goes, oh, that's rubbish.
He had a piece of buttered bread and he flung it like a frisbee out in the yard, and he's like, and stay out. I loved him. It made me crack up. I was still depressed over the whole thing. Like I said, I was all set to hate on him. I can't hate him. I absolutely loved him. He's so funny.
I think Matt Smith was the first doctor that, now that we were back in the show and we are watching this show every time it comes out, we're waiting for the Christmas special, and he's David Tennant's going to regenerate. His tenure is done on the show. Who's the next Doctor? And Matt Smith is going to be the next Doctor. And I looked up what he did and went, what the fuck is this guy? Like, can he do it? And honestly, I think some of the most emotional Doctor Who episodes, if you're emotionally invested in this show and you've been following it, religiously especially, but even partly following it, some of the most emotional jerking episodes came under Matt Smith. Good Man Goes to War, and the death of the Doctor, where where it draws out under River Song, and how River Song was really connected. What you think the most, as far as we saw with the Doctor, and I think another thing Matt Smith really has was I kind of call it as like an eye actor, where you can look into somebody's eyes when they're acting, and they're acting with their eyes, and you could see in Matt Smith that playful, I'm still the Doctor, but also that I'm 1,200 years old and I don't need to take shit because I've taken enough shit over my life, and I have seen some things and I have chosen to forget a lot of it because of where, being 1,200 plus years old or even older, he's not even sure at this point. He's lied more about it than he has told the truth. Really came across in his portrayal of the Doctor that, that playful side and that loving of humanity side and that special place that Earth had in his heart. But at the same time, I'm tired and I have seen so much, evil and bad in this world that I don't have any tolerance for it. And, I can put a stopper right in it.
At the same time, he's incredibly ADD. He's, he's the first Doctor. And this was what I was going to talk about earlier. 10 had like 6 years, because as you're going through his story, each season is basically a year. And he's got his companion with him the entire time. He's got a companion with him the entire time. With Matt Smith, he kind of starts the, okay, I'll be back. You wait for me, with tiny Amelia, and comes back a decade later. And then he kind of continues that. The amount of the Doctor's lifespan where he was traveling with Amy and the Doctor was like 300 years.
Right.
Long time.
So he's kind of in and out and back and forth and kind of doing his own thing, and he'll keep coming back to be with them, but he's letting them live their life too, which is really interesting. And then, later on with him, he spends, I think it was like 700 years in the town of Christmas.
Yes.
So the Matt Smith Doctor is like the longest running incarnation of the Doctor. And you can see that play out in the way that he plays it. Yeah. You can see him getting older. You can see him getting, bitter or whatever, or, So that's why I love the Matt Smith Doctor story, because it flips the whole narrative. It's no longer just this, and now we're going on this adventure, and now we're going on this adventure. It's like, what's been going on here? He's got a lizard woman and her wife in Victorian times that he's buddies with, and this Strax, whatever his name, whatever he was.
Potato.
The potato.
Yeah.
The potato one.
Potato. He's managed to.
Centauran.
Yes. He's managed to gather all these other companions, and you never figure out why or how. And you can assume that there's a lot more with him and River because of, the different stories that they have together and stuff. So there's so much you don't see with Matt Smith's character.
Right.
And I love that. I think it's really interesting.
There's a lot of elsewhere.
Yeah.
I think my favorite thing about Matt is we go from fun-loving, bow ties are cool and I wear fezzes now.
Yes. Yes.
To like a light switch, I will end you right here if you don't shut your mouth. I've had enough of this. I killed you 8 times. I will kill you again. You know what I mean? Like, don't make me stop this car.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And like you can watch it wash over his face. Like, he's such a good actor that you can watch it change in real time.
Yeah.
The moment
From
he
I'm
has
having
with,
a good time to you're gonna die now.
Right.
the moment he has with Tom Baker, when Tom Baker comes back as the curator, and he's talking about how, I could do that. I could be a curator, the curator. And then he talks with Tom Baker, and that exchange of passing the torch in real life / this could be me in the very distant future was, as acting goes, it was a great moment, that especially considering the fourth Doctor was my doctor, and then to be watching this with my kids and waiting for that episode to come out, to see them have that back and forth, like, oh, he could be me, and I could be you, and oh, hey, and have that moment was almost like a lock, like this was good time spent watching this show.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That it really
Right.
brought everything to, like, this is where I was hoping it would be.
Yeah.
Yep.
The one of my kind of underlying favorites for Matt Smith was A Nightmare in Silver, partially because Warwick Davis is in it, and
Oh yeah.
you can never
Yeah.
dislike something with Warwick Davis.
True story.
But you know, this is where Matt Smith gets to literally play two people, because he's infected by Cybermen intelligence, and he's flipping back and forth between the two. And the angles and the camera and just his performance is so perfect with it. It's so much fun to watch. Sorry.
No,
I'm sure you've got 5 episodes to...
we do. We gotta crush these 5 episodes. We're an hour and 36 minutes into this show.
Sorry.
No. Waxing ecstatic is why we're here. So the first one is the Pandorica opens. River again summons the Doctor and his companion Amy Pond to Roman Britain in 102 AD, where underneath Stonehenge lies a fabled prison called the Pandorica that legends tell holds the most fearsome being in the whole universe. However, it's discovered that the Doctor has put in a trap. Nope, I read that wrong. The Doctor has been put in a trap by the alliance of his greatest enemies to save the universe from cracks in time that were caused by the Doctor's space-time travel in the TARDIS. That through line of the cracks that we catch in all these episodes around this time are fantastic.
Absolutely.
And then when we get to this point where essentially it's a baddies of the bad having an intervention meeting with the Doctor. Like, bro, you got to stop. You're fucking it up for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love this episode. If I recall, isn't he like in a box wrapped in chains and some other nonsense in the bottom of this prison for a while?
No, that's the one that comes later. I want to say it's the astronaut episode with the silence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
The
no,
silence
this is where Amy's in the box and
Yeah.
has been for 2,000 years.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You think that
definitely.
you think that it's the Doctor, but then it opens up and it's Amy, and
Rory
yeah.
stood guard for 2,000 years.
Right. That's another one of those times where this series always finds a way to get right into your feels.
Yeah.
The idea that this man loves this woman so much, he would guard her for all of eternity if that's what it what it took.
but it was literally the only way to make not just Amy Pond, but people watching go ship Amy and Rory, as it were. Because they were all about Amy and the Doctor. Like, that's what was going to happen. That was what was supposed to happen,
And I never felt that. I never
No?
had any inkling whatsoever of Amy and the Doctor being together.
But they kissed. Like, she was crazy about him. She was absolutely crazy about him. And so having Rory do, and that was part of the dynamic. Rory trying to be as interesting as the Doctor, or, you know, they grew up as friends and sort of a
And
thing.
then-
And he's like, hey, I'm here too. You know, it was part of this dynamic.
Mhm.
And
Which-
haphazardly becoming the hero.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then eventually becoming a complete badass.
Oh,
But, you know, it took Amy, one, losing him and completely forgetting him. And
Mhm.
then, you know, having him watch over her for 2,000 years for it to make sense for Amy to be like, okay, yes, obviously you're the guy, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, as a male outsider of watching women exist in this world, the happiest women I know are the ones that actually eventually fall for the guy that would have waited for her.
Well,
Right.
yeah, of course.
But the women who spend all their time chasing the Doctor, so to speak,
Mhm.
always end up just pining into useless anger as they get older.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
yet
So-
it's still in the end where it's, congratulations, Rory Pond. No, that's not how it works. Yeah, it's how it
Yes,
works.
it is.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Right. And I have to say, as a watcher of this show, Amy was adorable.
Oh, yeah.
I thought,
She's my favorite.
She's
Yeah.
cute.
No, Rose is my favorite. But Amy was absolutely adorable, and we would make the gingerest of ginger babies.
You would.
They wouldn't
off
be able
over
to
there.
be anywhere near the sun.
she was definitely cute. Very, very sassy. I love her because she's so sassy. You know.
Mhm.
Yeah, she never took shit. She always said what she was thinking. She never like, oh, you know, she liked the Doctor, so she laid one on him, you know. She
Mhm.
you know, and she never played that wilting flower ever.
Yeah.
You know, even to her detriment in an episode where there's two of her and one's 40 years older, and
Yeah.
it's the character in and of itself is really amazing, and then the relationship with her and her husband is really amazing.
Yeah.
So she's
Yeah.
she's my favorite. She's my favorite companion.
Nice.
I think she's
Uh,
my second favorite companion.
who's your favorite?
Rose.
Rose.
I
Rose.
love 10 and Rose. I love 10 and Rose. I love 9 and Rose, but I love 10 and Rose.
10 and Rose was a more likely match,
Yeah.
whereas 9 almost seemed like he was her dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when she met 10, she had a whole different emotional response to him.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So the next one on the list is the Big Bang. The Doctor's trapped in a prison from which escape is impossible. The space time vessel, the TARDIS, is blown up with the time-traveling archaeologist River Song inside. And the Doctor's companion, Amy Pond, has been shot and killed by an Auton replica of her fiancé, Rory. As the universe is collapsing, the Doctor uses time travel to solve these problems and ultimately reboot the universe. It was the old, have you tried shutting it off and turning it back on?
This is just part 2 of
Yeah.
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 I loved the seeing the different points where he went back
Mm-hmm.
to that you'd already seen. You'd already watched, you know, Amy with the blindfold, with the, you know, you'd seen all of this, and having it all tied together was really cool to see. And then the Doctor's dance at the wedding. Then
Yeah.
those two things, I agree. This is a fantastic episode.
It was kind of like in watching this episode was like watching that scene in the X-Men movie where Quicksilver's running around and he's like
Okay.
just tapping things and pushing them back into where they need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Anything else about this episode you guys want to touch on?
Wasn't that the one with at the end he leaves the wedding and River Song is out there outside and she's like, "Did you dance? You always used to dance at weddings." And it's something like that's how the marriage proposal came about.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Are you
Yeah.
asking me, or are you
Yes.
asking if I am? Yes. Was it
Yeah.
yes or yes? Yes.
Yes.
I really do love it. And at the beginning, I was not on board for Matt Smith. And I mean for like 10, 12, 14 episodes. Like I said, my friend was on me about I needed to watch Doctor Who. And I was like, I'm on board all the way through 10. And then something about 11 bucks me off.
Yeah.
You know, I enjoy the fez and the bow tie and the quirkiness and the anger and all of that, but it took a while before I saw the brilliance of this version of the Doctor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, like throughout, even going into 12 and now Jodie's Doctor, it's taken a while for me to see the brilliance of why we made these choices and what this individual actor brings to the Doctor's experience.
Yes.
I'm still not 100% sold on Jodie, but I have a feeling that when she goes to regenerate, I'm going to be sad.
Yeah.
And I'm going to sit there and go, why are you sad? You didn't like 9/10 of this, but this show has a way of
It's still a facet of the character you love.
yeah,
And
and it
you
teaches you to adore these characters.
Yeah.
like
Absolutely.
them or not. It's all part of that personality, one facet of that personality.
Right. This show is like a master class in character development.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the next episode is, like I touched on before, it's one of my favorites of all Doctor Who. It's right behind Blink, Vincent and the Doctor.
Oh, I love
great
that.
episode.
Absolutely.
Intrigued by an ominous figure in Vincent van Gogh's painting, The Church of Avers. Avers?
Sure.
The Doctor and Amy go back in time and meet Van Gogh and discover that I can't say this. Aversarois has been plagued by an invisible creature known as the Crapheus.
Crapheus.
Yeah.
See, I should have read this stuff before. And I've seen this episode like 80 times. Not that many times.
I know.
Just watched it like early this morning, so it's all fresh.
Yeah. Which only Van Gogh can see. The Doctor and Amy work with Van Gogh and defeat the Crapheus, but their attempt to have Van Gogh release his legacy through bringing him to the future and ultimately realize that they cannot change that point in time. This episode is fantastic, really, from beginning to end. But the ending scenes where he's being told about his accomplishments by the curator breaks my heart every fucking time.
Great use of Bill Nighy in this episode.
Yeah. Exactly.
Who's a fantastic actor.
Oh,
He's amazing.
And to do what he did in this episode, just a little bit was what put it perfectly. That this man that is suffering from depression and and self-hatred and low mode, self conscious, where he's, this person so far in the future, it admires every facet of this man, and to be able to portray that to the man himself unknowingly was, I'm not crying, you're crying,
Right.
Oh
because
yeah.
it was a if you can get on that emotional level, and see what's happening, just the very end of the episode, let alone through the entire episode, you're dealing with a mental health crisis in an individual, knowing what's going to happen to him, and trying everything you can do to let him know that, life is worth living, and knowing that in the end, it's things are going to happen the way they happen, and
Right.
the only thing you can do is those moments you can grasp onto, and make someone appreciate even a moment of their life. It was powerful episode, very powerful
Yeah.
episode.
Exactly what you were saying. This episode goes out of its way to make sure that the viewer understands that just because you can't fix somebody's problem doesn't mean that the time that you invest in them has no value.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we're all faced with that all the time. There's people that we all know that are just broken beyond repair.
Yeah.
And the little bit that we get to interject into their lives to make moments of it better are worth it to them and to you.
There's a big
Totally.
thing that I usually do, especially around the holidays, but through the entire year, where I'll go in and buy a coffee through the drive-through, and I'll pay for like the next couple guys behind me. Drop a
Sure.
20 and say, "Hey, 5 is for you guys. Use the rest to cover whatever you got coming through." Just knowing that maybe that one little bit of kindness in a day could turn someone's life around. I've felt down in the dumps and I've gone through Dunkin' Donuts and said, "No, there's like 3 cars ahead of you, pay for your drink, so you're all good, man." And be like, "Wow, it was a real shitty day today. Like, I feel like
Right.
shit. I'm tired. I don't want to fucking be here." But you know what? That was cool as hell. I don't even know who that dude was. And, bought me a coffee, and it made my morning a little better, knowing that I didn't have to pay $3 on, the junk coffee that I was too lazy to make,
Right.
kind of thing. Where it's, that was a good example of that, those moments in time that you can make someone's life better or change what they're thinking for the day. Great episode for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you are not a Doctor Who fan, it's still worthwhile to go look up this episode. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube, or of course, HBO Max has it all streaming right now or whatever. But without being a Doctor Who fan, you could appreciate this episode. It's a beautiful episode.
Even the stuff with the Grapheus, and that's all tangential. It's just this beautiful story with Vincent, and that actor does such a good job of portraying the manic and then the depression, and how he sees the world. That whole scene with, and the graphics
where they're all
use
laying under the star.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful. I mean, I'm a big fan of the artist to begin with, so and who isn't, but he just does such a good job of it. He does such a good job of portraying the artist, but also portraying this tortured soul.
Right.
And
the scene where he's laying in his bed and the doctor's trying to console him.
Yeah.
Excellent acting. And that guy has been in plenty of things after that. It's not like this was the only thing he ever did, but he's a really good actor.
Yeah.
And really underrated.
Agreed.
The next one I've got here is The Day of the Doctor. It's in the last day of the Time War, in which the War Doctor, John Hurt, chooses to kill both the Daleks and his own race, the Time Lord, to end the destructive conflict, paralleling this with a present-day choice by parliamentarian organization UNIT to destroy London rather than allow an alien invasion. Revising the backstory, the Doctor succumbs to Clara Oswald's plea to change his mind. And instead, at the last instance of the Time War, he hides his war-torn home planet in time rather than destroy it. Unfortunately, the time distortion occurred causes all but his latest incarnation to have no memory of this change decision. This is one of those episodes that's just good sci-fi.
Oh, totally, totally. This has to be one of my top 5 favorite episodes ever. I just absolutely loved it, the whole entire thing. And then you had, the appearances of actually all the doctors were in it,
including
Mhm.
Capaldi.
including
Right.
Aldi.
Including
Yeah.
Capaldi. Yep.
That part is what gets me. The episode itself is cool. I could really care less about what's happening with the present day stuff, but I love what's going on, with the war doctor and
Yeah.
that whole thing, and Rose being there but not being Rose, and
Mhm.
and just getting those 3 doctors there together and having that different dynamic, and seeing Tennant play off Smith, and the sonic comparisons and such. But I feel like the episode was lacking when it came to the present day stuff, but
Mhm.
all the War Doctor stuff is phenomenal.
The one of the things that I love about this episode is it's full of things that we've been hearing little tidbits about for seasons on seasons.
Yeah.
And as the little Easter eggy nuggets pop up, you're like, oh, you're like, oh, there it is, and then and you're like, they this whole thing was written, from the end, not the beginning, but they pulled all of those threads that have been being laid all the way through into a nice little bow, and then you're just sitting there going, isn't it pretty?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
it's
John
a perfect
Hurt's amazing.
50th. Yeah, no, he was amazing in it. It's a perfect 50th anniversary episode because you literally get to see 50 years of the Doctor.
Yeah.
Right.
Incarnate there, all working together, and that's the goosebumps and the, little.
And even the plus years where you're seeing Capaldi and for the first time and seeing the eyebrows and going,
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
that's what's coming. And,
Yeah.
Yep. Attack eyebrows.
Attack.
And like I said, this is like the culmination of Rose's character, where we left her on the beach, and she's with where out of all the things that this Time Lord's machine could have chosen, it chose a character that this Doctor had not yet met. That it was such a powerful character that the Time Lord machine, with its own sentient thoughts, figured that this was the perfect person to choose in order to get this point across. And the whole episode of them playing off each other, between the humor of the sand shoes and the dicky bow, and making fun of each other on, this is the guy that forgot, this is the guy that didn't do it yet, and this is the guy that remembers it all. And the happiest, I would say, Doctor in the series itself was the one that remembers it all. That David Tennant is the one that says, how could you not, remember how many children were on the planet? And the goofy one is the one that says, I forgot those numbers because it hurt so bad. And there was such an emotional back and forth with this episode, that it truly was it was a real masterpiece, like where they brought it together. And it was one of those episodes we sat around and waited for, and was knowing that the day of the Doctor is coming on this day, and that alone was a big thing, where it was an episode that we were anticipating,
Right.
waiting for it to air, and it to come out with John Hurt as the War Doctor was the perfect choice.
They aired this in theaters too, didn't they?
Yeah,
that was a big.
Yep. Yep. You can go around the certain theaters across the country were airing at the same time that this was one of those ones that we had our own fandom little party at home
Uh-huh.
for
Right.
the kids and their friends that, come
Yeah.
on over to the Olsons because we're going to be watching Doctor Who. And,
Yeah.
we're just excited as you guys are because of where this could go from here.
Mhm.
That was
And-
right after me and my wife had gotten back together, and I made her
Oh.
watch it.
Ooh.
Oh,
And
yeah.
she's like, I don't know what the fuck this is. And I'm like, just shut up and watch it. It's so good. And she's
It's
like,
okay.
I'm sure it is. Yeah. But she
You
has,
don't need to know. Just be quiet.
she has since watched a bunch of Doctor Who. She likes it. I'm really hoping that, like, in this last couple of, during the pandemic, really, when she would have a night off, and I'd be sleeping, she was watching Star Wars.
Oh.
And she watched it chronologically.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
When she got to the end of it, she's like, I so much more understand this, and I understand so much more why you love it.
Yeah.
It's still not her favorite thing in the world, but she understands why I love it.
Yeah.
And I'm
that's
really
awesome.
hoping that in the next, months or years, as she's binged through everything that she wants to watch, I would love it if she would sit down and start watching Doctor Who from 9 on
Right.
and see if it really grabs her. I bet you money somewhere in there it will.
That's awesome.
About halfway through 9, I think that could, it could go either way, but could grab you and be like, okay, this is what we're doing for the next 2 months.
Right. And
know,
I'm
and I've
sure
got
that my
time.
wife's going to be like, I hate Rose. Just because she knows that I adore Rose, she'll have to hate her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what happens with Jenna Coleman here.
No.
And
No.
Is that what happens with Jenna Coleman?
I think so. I
No.
think so.
Clara's
She is
adorable.
she's the cutest little companion that could possibly be. And then, I think she really brings out the humanity in Matt Smith's character. I think she was the perfect, mix to his needing to do this all the time and can't you talk without flinging your arms around, like that was the perfect fit for his doctor.
Anybody who's watching this live can see what no looks like on Lunr Grl's face.
If looks could kill, I'd be eating oatmeal.
Well,
No.
we have wrapped up 9, 10, and 11, and it took us just 2 hours.
I'm glad we saved
We went through pretty
12
quick,
and
huh?
13.
Yeah, so we're going to have 12 and 13, and I suggest that we wait until just after 13 is ready to regenerate so that we can talk about what's to come.
Absolutely.
So
sure.
we'll talk about Capaldi and Jody, and then we'll talk about what's coming. Now it'll be a fun show, I think.
Absolutely.
And we probably won't get into it for another like 30, 40 episodes.
It's not
So-
good. I need a little bit of a Doctor Who break, I think.
I don't think there's any such thing.
I'm
I've
dropping
packed in
down
so
low
much.
gear. We're grabbing Capaldi by them. Let's go, baby. Let's
I'm
go.
really, I think I'm going to start putting it on it as comfort food
Yeah.
while I'm relaxing doing stuff. I'm going to start going through stuff just, in the background of my life, because I think I let go of it at some point and I've just realized how much I missed it.
Yeah.
I think when you guys said that, the thought about bringing me in on this, I was like, I was at a point where let me throw in the Raven with Capaldi and having Macy Williams in there from Game of Thrones, which is, a great cross, actress
Mhm.
moving over where, I watched that and it was like, oh, you know what? I kind of like Capaldi now. I'm into it. Let's get it. And then let's go. And,
Yeah.
so
No,
I started
I
watching that and then went back and caught up on all the
Capaldi and Whittaker are so different. Even though Moffat still has Capaldi, Whittaker's a complete turn on so many levels because you now have a different showrunner and stuff.
Yeah.
But even though you've still got Clara with Capaldi, it's such a completely different feel. So I'm glad we're taking a little break
dynamic.
Yep.
because we gotta.
So we'll revisit this in a long set of months. And
Some
we'll-
moons
we'll-
from now.
we'll do more Who. All right, guys. We'll see you. It's been great.
Thanks for having us.
Can I do the "I gotta pee" line? Can I be Brady right now?
Well, you can do that right now.
Thanks,
I gotta
Don,
piss.
for having me.
I'm
man.
out. I gotta piss.
Bye.
Thanks for having me, man. It was
All right,
We'll see you guys.
Thanks. It was fun.
All right. Everybody make sure that you like this video. Give us a 5-star review on iTunes. It really helps people find us. And if you do, Brady will read your review live on the show. And just a reminder, we have these excellent episodes or issues of Star Wars Insider that we're going to give away to fans that like, share, and comment on these YouTube videos. I want to be able to see that you did all three. Believe it or not, Dragon Buddy won the one from last week, which works out really good because him and his wife won the escape crate. So I'm going to ship it all at the same time as soon as Brady brings in the cup. So please make sure that you subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can find me at Jetfire1979 on Twitter and at DellaSnooch on Instagram. We're not going to talk about where you can find Brady because he's up north. So apparently you can find Brady up north. You can find us and other great podcasts at red5network.com. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you guys next time. May the force be with you and go blue.
This podcast is part of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts, visit red5network.com.